again, we both had some pretty good weeks. I was able to go 10-3, and you went 8-5. You started out just crazy hot. The first 8 games were the only 8 games that you got right. But then Arizona, Buffalo, Chicago, LA Chargers, and Dallas all let you down. I was just kind of all over the place, but did have a better overall pick record this week. Neither one of us got the Cardinals right, which was the only one I really cared about. But this is where we are. So, moving into week 15, home stretch to be sure. Starting out Thursday night with the Rams at the Niners. This game is relevant for me, and I'm going to try not to project what I want to happen, which is oddly enough for the Niners to win. But I am hoping the Niners win. That being said, I think the Rams are playing a bit better right now. The Niners just lit up the Bears, and that's great, but it's the Bears. So I'm actually going to pick the Rams here to take this one and hope that my intuition is just wrong. Maybe I'll pick against the Cardinals too. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, and this one, it's kind of good, I guess, to see San Francisco have a little life. It's a pretty amazing game for Garindo. But yeah, I don't know that I think that they've solved all their problems. The Rams look pretty great. They had a great game against the Bills. So yeah, I'll stick with the Rams on this one. I think they've got the better momentum, and we'll see where we go on that one. I think that's a safer pick, though. Next up will be on Sunday, Kansas City at Cleveland. Right now, any game against Cleveland's kind of fun because you have no idea what's going to happen. Jameis is hurling the ball all over the field, which is fun. Kansas is eking out wins. So there's a real part of me that wants to take Cleveland in this one, but I'm not. I'm going to take Kansas anyway just because they find ways to win. I'm kind of hoping that one becomes a snowball, and then it's up for grabs for anyone. But we'll see. What about you? You risking it on Cleveland?
No, I don't think I will. I'm starting to think it's of the mind of. Do you remember when Joe Flacco came in last year? It might have been for Cleveland, oddly enough, and he played really, really, really high for a minute, and then he just fell off, and it wasn't hit and miss anymore. It was just miss. I'm thinking whatever change of pace magic Jameis Winston brought with him might have run out of fairy dust or whatever, and so now it's just not great Jameis Winston now. I do think there could be a lot of yards, but I think that Kansas City's defense in the red zone will probably be enough to keep them down. He's probably going to cause he's going to make a few mistakes, and I think the Chiefs made a deal with the devil, so they're probably going to win this one, but we'll see. So. It could be a very entertaining game. I'll give it that. Absolutely. Next up, if I'm not mistaken, we got the Bengals at the Titans. It's another game that could be oddly entertaining. The Bengals have had some weird games. They're coming off the win against your Cowboys. And then the Titans, they're just strange. They don't seem to do anything particularly well anymore. Toward the first half of the season, they had a pretty good defense, right? And they would still keep games low. They'd lose, but it would be losing like 15-12 or something. Their defense seems to have given way, and their offense has not figured things out. So I'll be picking the Bengals here. I think that they're going to get hot enough that they will be that team that everyone's glad didn't make the playoffs, because I think that the 8 losses is just going to keep them out. But
yeah.
But they're that team that no one really wants to play right now, because as long as their defense plays decent, they're a really good team. So what do you think on this
one? I mean, similarly, I think that I expect to see Tony Pollard throw up some numbers this weekend, playing against them because they don't have a defense. But I don't think that Tennessee can put up numbers against them. They just lost to Jacksonville 10-6. That's uninspiring. So I'll take Cincinnati on this one, which will bring us over to Washington and New Orleans. Washington was on bye and they beat Tennessee before that, which isn't really saying tons. I think that they kind of lost themselves for a minute, and I think they're kind of coming back, hopefully all healed up. New Orleans managed a really ugly loss to the Giants, 14, I think to 11, 14-10, and that is hard to understand. So yeah, I'll definitely take Washington to continue forward momentum, and New Orleans to try to survive. So yeah, I'll take Washington in that one. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'll be right there with you. It still looks like Derek Carr is probably not going to play. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
They're saying he's week to week, but he's fighting. There's a hand problem, and he's fighting. Dealing with a concussion, and so it's just not ideal. Plus, their season is virtually over at this point. I don't even know that 10-7 gets you in, let alone 9-8, even if they won out. Their division is still the probably better bet there because the NFC South is just not run away. There's no one's really getting away from things. But I still don't think that they're going to be able to do this, even with Derek. At best, that's a coin toss. So yeah, I'll take Washington here. I don't know that I favor them by as much as as Las Vegas does, but the 7.5 in New Orleans. But we'll see. Yeah. Moving forward, we've got Ravens at Giants. Now, you were talking at one point about how bad the Cowboys' home record was. And I found a team whose home record is worse. Unfortunately, it's not company you want to be in. So the Giants are going 7 at home, and the Ravens are, well, it doesn't really matter. They're just a better football team. So the Ravens should, short version, the Ravens are favored in this game by, good Lord, 16. That's a college spread. And they may actually cover because they're the type of team to run up the score. I know running up the score doesn't ever happen, but it may actually happen. And I don't see any way that the Giants pull this one off. They don't even have like a Jameis Winston to go out and go crazy. So what do you think on this?
Yeah, I mean this would be the kind of game where I feel like the only way they could win is if Lamar fumbles the ball 2 or 3 times, Derrick Henry fumbles the ball 2 or 3 times, and the defense somehow scores some touchdowns. I mean, it would take a really peculiar game in that route. I see this one being more of the Baltimore gets up by 4 touchdowns and starts playing secondary people kind of game. So yeah, I'll take Baltimore in this one, and that will bring us up to Dallas at Carolina, which sadly could be a really good game. Carolina's kind of hung in there with some really good teams, of which Dallas I'm pretty sure is not. So I think this could end up being pretty good, but I'm gonna just stick with the home team on this one with Dallas. I think we've been kind of close in games, and we'll just see if we can hang in there. What about you?
Yeah, I think I feel the same. It's funny. They're actually giving Carolina 3 points. I find very odd. Like, I admit they've played better than you might think. I won't be shocked if they win this game, but I wouldn't have picked them. Yeah, actually, I'll be joining you picking Dallas here. They've got a worse run defense than Cincinnati. And Rico Dowdle's kind of finding his legs a little bit. So, I mean, just that alone gives me some confidence here. You weren't able to get after Joe Burrow that much, but Bryce Young doesn't have as good an offensive line, and he doesn't have as good a presence. So I think you can. This is a strange one for them to go this way on it. So if y'all were strictly pressure up the middle, I would give Bryce a better chance. But because your pressure comes so much more from the outside, I think that'll actually work to your favor here. So I'll take Dallas to win this one. That's a little surprising. Next, we've got a real amazing game. We've got the Jets at the Jaguars. In short, I think the Jaguars are still in probably for the rest of the season without Trevor Lawrence. That's not going to give them much of a chance in any game. The Jets may actually play fairly well in this game and might not screw it up. So I would see the Jets winning here and at least covering the 3.5. We don't really do spreads, but just for this one. What do you think on this one? You see any way the Jags get the upset?
I mean, in the sense where the Jets have shown to be really good this year at finding ways to lose, yeah, I mean, I think they've got a shot. But should they win? No. I mean, this should be the Jets' game, but I've picked the Jets to win a bunch of games, and they've added 10 losses for me. So With that being said, I'm going to stick with them because it's an illness at this point. So I'll take the Jets. We'll see if Aaron and Devontae Adams and those guys can find another way to lose to Jacksonville. But I kind of hope not. What I think might be a more entertaining game is going to be the Houston Miami game. I really feel like Miami has, really had a lot of momentum. They're playing good football. Um, I think Tua's come back. He's spreading the ball around. It's not just, that's one thing about the Bengals, for instance. Like, it's all Chase. If anything happens to him, I don't know what happens. They could be really good still. They could be a disaster after that. Tua's moving the ball around. I think that's fun to watch. Houston's coming off a bye. Their last game was against Jacksonville, which was a win, but I don't know. I just feel like they have not looked as convincing in their last few games. Maybe that was injury. We'll see. Coming off this bye, I'm actually going to pick Miami to take this one in Houston. That's going to be my risky pick, I think, in this week. What do you think? How do you see this one going?
I don't see that as much of a risky pick, to be honest. Since they
Yeah,
got Tua back, they're a much better team. And they've really gotten things going. Like, if you exclude his first game back, where he's probably just not in rhythm and all that, I think
right.
they're 4-2. So they're a pretty good team, and they've had a fairly tough schedule too in that set of games. So I do think they're a pretty good team. I For some reason in my head though, I think Houston just matches up well against them. So I'm going to pick Houston here. But it's a pretty close. Even Vegas has them as like Houston is a 3-point favorite home. They just give it home field. But I will take Houston
Yeah,
here. I think that their secondary matches up relatively well with with what the Dolphins do. But we'll see. I certainly hope, at least for fantasy, that Tyreek Hill does some stuff. So we'll see. Um, yeah. Moving into the afternoon window, or the middle window, I guess, whatever you want to call it. We got the Colts at the Broncos. This could be a pretty good game. It's really
yeah,
mostly meaningful just for the Broncos. The Colts still have a shot. They've got an outside chance, kind of like how the Cardinals have an outside chance. Especially if the Texans do lose to the Dolphins, then that makes this a bit more of a thing. But as it stands right now, the Broncos are playing pretty good ball. I'm really liking Bo Nix and the way he plays. Um, and I don't trust Anthony Richardson quite yet. And I don't trust their entire offense quite yet. They probably need another offseason of finding not just good weapons, but the right weapons. And
yeah.
so we'll see. There are always those weird games where he gets a couple of 50-yard passes to Josh Downs or whoever down the sideline kind of a thing, and those work, and those can really upset some picks. But I'll take the Broncos here to take this one. So, what do you see in this game?
Similarly, I think that's kind of how that game breaks down for me as well. I think that Denver is one of my favorite teams right now to watch. It's been such a fun thing to watch that team really come together throughout the year. Indianapolis has a lot of great things in place, but like you've already pointed out, is between the two rookie quarterbacks, I think is a major difference between these two teams, just in their refinement and the way that they play and their consistency. Um, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be seeing Denver come out of this, and I'm excited to see how they end up the season in their division. The Colts are no easy team to beat, and then they've got the Chargers coming up, which is going to probably determine their their future. Then they've got the Bengals and the Chiefs. If they can win those four, I think going into the playoffs, they're a really scary team to have to go up against. So I'm excited to watch them. But yeah, I'll take Denver in this one to pull it out. Probably the game of the week is the Detroit Buffalo game. I'm really, really intrigued by this one. Um, Both teams play really good football, and we've seen it all season. Detroit is probably should be the no-brain pick. It's at home. They just don't lose. They just refuse to, which is fun. With that being said, I'm still picking Buffalo. I love Josh Allen. Their last game to the Rams, I you could not. I would have lost a bet on them giving up 40 points to the Rams in particular, but 40 points at all. They're not the best defense, but they're middle. They're at least middle of the pack, if not a little bit up on the upper echelon of those teams. And I just think that was a bit of a fluke. I think they'll hold Detroit somewhat in check. Will Josh be able to will them to a win? We'll see. I think the defense obviously showed that even Josh Allen cannot will yourself to a win if your defense doesn't show up to play. And obviously Joe Burrow can echo that. But yeah, I'll take Buffalo in this one. Where are you at?
Yeah, I think I landed actually the same place last week. I'm not going to make this about the Cardinals, but last week it felt like the Cardinals defense turned into the Cardinals defense we kind of thought they were going to be coming into the season for just a game. It was like, what did we say? We're not super impressed with the secondary, and they don't seem to have any pressure. Well, we got no sacks, and they passed it at 80% completion percentage. So that kind of fit the script perfectly. We're coming into the season, and I forget about this because I think I want to forget about how bad my take was. But I thought the Bills were going to really struggle defensively coming into this season. And because they lost Tre'Davious White and Michael Hyde and also Michael Parsons, and, all these guys. And it's just like, well, that didn't seem to shake them at all. I was like, maybe for 1 week, the team we thought was going to show up kind of showed up. But I think that they right that ship. They're well coached and well run. And I just don't see them having a complete catastrophe of a game. Josh Allen having the best game of the year and losing is probably not going to happen that often. And I can see it going the other way. People talk about the Lions, and they're similar. They're really well coached, and they have like 13 guys from defense on IR. And for people wondering, there's only 11 starters on defense, so I don't know what's going on there. But they're missing a lot of guys, and I could see this being the game where their defense just cannot keep up with what Josh Allen and company are putting down. So we'll see. Might be a hit the over if you were a gambling person on this one, but I'll actually join you and take the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, you're right. This is probably game of the week. If it's not game of the week, it's probably this next one. You got the Pennsylvania Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Philadelphia Eagles, 10-3 against 11-2. Both teams are playing really well. Russell Wilson seems to have come back from the grave. But the Eagles are flying high, no pun intended, sorry. Saquon's just killing it. I'm really enjoying what Saquon is doing. Regardless of what team it's for. It's just been so cool to see him have this great year. I'm hoping he breaks 2,000. He's on pace, I think, to do so. This is not an easy team to run against, particularly, but it's not impossible either. So we'll see. I think Philadelphia is the better pick here, but I don't put it past Pittsburgh to find a way in this one. But yeah, I'll take Philadelphia for this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that this should be a very good game. I think Pittsburgh going in, I like every other team. You're not amazingly, you're not trying. I wouldn't try to control AJ and Jalen. I would be just. We're not going to give up big runs to Saquon Barkley. Like and not that other teams don't try that too, but other teams don't have Pittsburgh's defense. So that I think that would be the thing. If we give up one or two big plays to AJ Brown, it is what it is. We're going to have to score points to win this game, regardless. But Philly, Philly's passing game has been underwhelming the last few weeks, anyway. And so even with Saquon pulling out these huge plays to carry them through, the games are all really, really close for the most part. And so I don't know. I again, this one should be closed. I'm going to will Pittsburgh to a win here and take their side in this one. But I think this one will be a really good game one way or the other. One game that I hope is not a particularly great game is the Arizona New England game. New England always kind of hangs in with some teams, not always, but sometimes they hang in with some teams that I don't really think they should have any business around. My big thing with Arizona has been I feel like they've got some great pieces on offense. They just don't seem to get them all clicking in a system that maybe uses their skills the best. So I'll be really interested to see if they can work in some new things against what should be a more easy opponent, and start getting those things implemented and worked out in the next 2 weeks while your schedule is a little bit easier. So I'll take Arizona to win this one. I really want to see Kyler go out in particular and just let's throw the ball. Let's get going here. But what do you see in that one?
Something similar. I try not to rationalize too much, but I did. When we were talking about the Cardinals earlier, I'll give myself that much rope, where it's like, okay, hold on now. We've got 13 games we've played this year, and if I was to ask you, how many games have we played against teams who were now under 500? Well, if you said 3, you'd be right. So 10 games have been against teams over 500. We've had a rather rigorous schedule. And when we played those teams under, I think we won all of them because it was the Jets, the Dolphins, who granted the Dolphins are 6-7, so they're barely under, but still, and then the Bears. When we've played them, and we've played them pretty well. The Dolphins came down to a field goal, but everything else was pretty good fashion. I think we should have what we need to beat this game. They better be playing for their coach, because I think there's a solid chance that if the offense comes out in shambles again, we may lose an offensive coordinator. And if we lose this game, it's going to, there may be jerseys thrown onto the field or something. Oops, sorry. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it should be Arizona here. I think we'll be able to be the balanced offense that they prefer to be, where it's some run, it's some pass, it's that kind of thing. I'd love to see our defense return to form and not turn into what we were at the end of last season. We had 1 sack in the last 6 games last year. And then we started out the 5-game stretch to close the year this year with no sacks against Seattle. So I'm hoping that's not a trend and that we can start getting after them. I'd love to see Darius Robinson maybe get on the stat sheet that way in his 3rd game back from injury. But we'll see. There's a lot going on here. Of course, for me, it's the game of the week because it's the Cardinals. But for everyone else, I'm sorry if you get stuck watching that one rather than Pittsburgh and Philly or Bills and Lions. But we'll see. Yeah, I'll take Arizona. The last game in the afternoon window is another really good game, actually. It's the Buccaneers and the Chargers. This should be a sneaky good game. A lot of relevance here. Bills, Lions, Steelers, Eagles. All 4 of those teams are making the playoffs. Like, that's just happening.
Yeah.
There's still some question marks for at least the Buccaneers and kind of for the Chargers. Chargers coming off another rather unpleasant loss to the Chiefs. Buccaneers still playing quite well and getting kind of healthy. I mean, they're not getting Godwin back this year, but they've got Mike Evans back, and he's playing pretty well. It seems like he's back and actually healthy. He's Mike Evans, so he's playing like Mike Evans. I actually think the Bucs are going to pull this one off. Maybe this is one where we'll actually have a different opinion on it. I like what they're doing with the Chargers, but I think if they're going against a team that can actually pass on them and is willing to take those chances and they come up heads every once in a while, that team could actually beat them. So that's what I think Tampa Bay is going to be. How about you?
Yeah, one of the interesting things I was looking at on this one was differentials between these two teams. So the Chargers have given up 100 less points on defense, right? But they've also scored 100 less points. So this one, I think, would be a really, really fun, back and forth game from a defense versus offense standpoint. I tend to agree with you that I think, it's kind of scary that Tampa Bay scored that many points and didn't have Mike Evans for a few games, or Godwin for that matter. But with Mike Evans back, as long as Baker doesn't have one of those very odd games where he just is off, and you see the bad Baker, I think they'll pull this one off. It'll be a real task because it's in LA and all that, but I think this will be a really fun game. I'm gonna follow suit and pick Tampa Bay on this one. And just because the entertaining games don't stop, Green Bay and Seattle is also probably going to be a really interesting game. Seattle, of course, has been looking pretty good and trending upward, I feel like, in these last 3 weeks. Green Bay continues to be holding on. This one, I'm going to choose to will myself to pick Green Bay over Seattle in this one. I'm not 100% sold on that. I think Green Bay has looked a lot more vulnerable this year than they have in the past, or the recent past, I should say. So I would not be shocked if Seattle wins this one, but I'll take Green Bay.
Yeah, similar. And of course, I have motives, like I acknowledge. Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Went to pot. But, Green Bay is actually favored in Seattle, oddly enough. So I think that one of the reasons Seattle matches up pretty well against the Cardinals this year, two of the last 3 games that they've won, I don't know exactly what Seattle's done in that period, but I think that's right, is our kind of average offensive line. They have a rather good defensive line. They've invested heavily into it, and it's paying dividends. And I think that was one of the things that was kind of the crux for us going into that game. The Packers don't have an average offensive line by any measure. They've got a top 5 offensive line. And I think without that disruption, they have a problem. And also, Green Bay doesn't have like one receiver. They don't have a Jamar Chase, which is bad for Seattle because they have a really good. I forget which one it is. Anyway, they have a really good corner that can just kind of take a guy away. But they've got 3 or 4 really good targets and a pretty good running back, Josh Jacobs. And so, I say pretty good running back, a top 7 or something like that running back. So I think they've got enough diversity on offense that this should be a problem for the Seahawks. And again, I may be willing it to happen as well. But I won't be absolutely shocked if the Seahawks win, but I will be really annoyed if they do, that's for sure. So I'll take Green Bay there with you, and keep my dwindling Cardinals hopes alive. So Monday night, there are 2 games. The first one at 8 o'clock is the Bears at the Vikings. The only reason this might even have a chance of being entertaining is because it's a division matchup. And that division sometimes plays itself really hard and really well, and you get some good games. The Bears have been reeling ever since that stupid Hail Mary against Washington. They haven't won since. They're 0-6 away, and then you got the Vikings who are 6-1 at home. And that's a bad combo. So, in short, Minnesota ought to have the goods here. They should be able to win this game. They should be able to beat the spread and then some. And I will pick Minnesota to win, but my one hope for this being an entertaining game, and I don't really care if Minnesota wins or loses, but for this to be a good game, is that it's a division game, and the Bears have had some like just crazy weird losses. Maybe they could turn one of those into a win, but that's not what I think is going to happen. So, what about you on this one?
Yeah, I'm with you. The division games never are rarely straightforward affairs. But Chicago, their game against San Francisco, I did not see that coming. I mean, they got absolutely pummeled by a team that has been injured. They didn't have like they're on like their 15th string running back. I mean, I don't know. They just didn't show up at all, and I'm almost wondering if in their minds their season's over, and it's just what are they playing for? So, and Minnesota, while this is not a must-win game, yeah, like they want to win it because they're so close in that division. Everything is close in that division. So, yeah, I think Minnesota wins this one pretty easily. I don't think this will be. I doubt this will be much of a game, but you're right. There's always that kind of odd chance in division. And that will bring us down to the final game, which is Atlanta versus Las Vegas. Atlanta's still hanging around in that division, trying to get ahead, and they still could. And this one should definitely help them on their way. It's almost to that point with Las Vegas where if they win a game, I might fire someone, right? If I'm the owner, I'm sorry guys, but the season's over. The only thing we have is a draft pick at this point. Don't ruin our dreams. We need someone to go with this incredible tight end we picked up, right? Like a quarterback. So, I'll be very interested to see how that goes. I just hope they don't get any injuries. Like, let's just get through this game. I don't see much of a game here. I think Atlanta pulls that one off easy. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what should happen here. I'm actually going to pick the Raiders. This will be my one weird pick.
Love it.
The Falcons are very much so in their division race. They're 6-7 as opposed to Tampa 7-6, but the Falcons win both matchups against Tampa this year. So if they win and Tampa loses to the Chargers, well, they're back in first place. They've got the reins there. So there really is a lot on the line for them, but they have been so strange this year and just one of the biggest disappointments. They'd be the biggest disappointment probably of the year at 6-7 if it weren't for the Jets. The Jets, they're going to be the biggest disappointment of the decade probably. So, that being said, the Raiders just strike me as one of those teams that's going to screwing up. And, right now they're the first overall pick. And, if the draft were today, followed by the Giants right after them. And it kind of feels like that's something that could happen. It's just like, the Giants, they're right there. They need a quarterback. And holy cow, there's a kind of diva-ish quarterback available coming out of Colorado. So good luck to them with that one. But, the Raiders, I really like Brock Bowers. I feel like you can't talk about the Raiders and not just throw that in there at some point. Brock Bowers has been just a fantastic new player in the NFL. I'm super excited to see what he does with his career. I sometimes wish the Cardinals had drafted him instead of Marvin Harrison Jr., but don't tell the Cardinals I said that.
I won't tell.
So, anyways, I will take the Raiders here just as my one weirdo pick for the week. And I saved it till the last because I couldn't find another one that made more sense. Won't be shocked, of course, at all if Atlanta figures out a way to win against the terrible Raiders team. But we'll see. Aiden O'Connell is one of those guys. I think he's playing, and he's gonna go out and take his shot. So we'll see. But that'll wrap up Week 15. A lot of really good games, a couple of stinkers, but there are a lot of really big, really meaningful games. Some teams are gonna get little stars next to their names in the standings after this week, and some teams are gonna get little X's. So it's a big week. I'm hoping my Cardinals aren't one of the X's. We can't be one of the stars. But anyway, we'll see what happens. So, any closing thoughts on this week?
No, I was just thinking back through, you were just saying about Tampa Bay and Atlanta. And I think Tampa Bay is actually a significantly better football team than Atlanta. But Atlanta, they play, Atlanta plays the Commanders here in 3 weeks. And they're obviously a good team. The combined win total of the other three teams that they play is 7. So I think they have a real shot of going to the playoffs, which is crazy. So I'll leave it on that note. I'm looking forward to this week. A lot of good games to watch. So looking forward to it. We'll see you on the other side of that, and we'll see what ends up happening.